see that full circle is such a blessing because that kid used to take a taxi and an Uber every day to come practice with us and stand outside in the rain and the cold and wanted to be a Chief so bad that now he's a part of that fraternity to put himself around those like-minded athletes, but also have the culture and mindset to dominate. And he played at Richard Montgomery High School. Shout out to him, going through a lot of stuff. His dad died during the season. We went to Florida, people helped out, like rehab to perform. And those guys said they're going to come back and give back. And that's what it's all about, because I told them one day they might coach my son.
I think one of the most impressive things that I've seen, and you just kind of touched on small points through it over the course of that last little bit there, diversification. I think we hear about diversity a lot, but your diversification in terms of the areas that you are connecting with in the county, the areas in which you are involving yourself. You talk about everybody from county council people to other business owners to coaches throughout the county. I think that your best years and the impact that you're going to have are only going to be maximized in the future. So just my hats off to you with regards to whether or not it was something that came naturally or something you've been more purposefully trying to do. But you're getting into multiple spaces. That being said, one of the challenges that I think you alluded to was sometimes when there's a perception of success and a perception that you are doing well, you do run into a situation where initially, especially, sometimes people aren't supporting you. Then it might take some time for them to come around and to support you. Can you talk a little bit about that, whether or not it's big picture or specifics?
Well, two things. You probably would know the statistics of a business lasting in America isn't long. And so, like I said, I'm coming up to my 6th year. I forgot to celebrate my 5th year, but, why celebrate when you got a lot of more work to do? But through the business, I would say support. One day I had a meeting about the idea of 40 Club, and a coach in the organization said, who's no longer there, what's one day going to do? And I'll never forget that day, never forget that thing he said to me. And I said, one day does a lot. It provides something, it gives people a perception, it gives people, and actually, I'll say, Adam Bradley told me this. He said, turn perception into reality. And that's what we're talking about, like 40 Club might look like, oh, it's doing all this and that. The more you do, the more problems come. And the extent of not problems like you don't want to do it, but technical, financial, those things that when you start by yourself, that's why for me, I'm really big now on growing, collaboratively, like trying to find other people to build with. I have to define what success is, and it might be where I say, hey, maybe 40 Club shuts down and merges it with somebody. I have to do what's best, not just for me sometimes, but for the community so I can see these things last long. Knowing when to walk away or to say that I've done my part. As I'm getting older and want to start a family, I have to know that good things sometimes come to an end. But, hopefully only Lord knows if there's more to come. And I've seen my first check ever giving back, not from people paying me, was $480. And I think I still have that pay stub. See, all these things are ironic, right? My 40 Club first invoice payment was $480. Those are little signs to keep going. I'm like, okay. Now to see, for someone who grew up with middle class, not too much and all that, and I say that in a time where it was cheaper, so I don't know, that much about it, but didn't have that much, is to have an operating budget of over $250,000 giving back to people without selling, knocking anyone. I'm not selling a membership or Xerox machine or a car or, even insurance. But without those people, we wouldn't be able to do things either. So like I said, we need all that. But I tell people that sometimes this is God. This isn't me. He's going through me. I didn't think I was going to do this. And if it motivates someone to do something else, I've had people from out of state. I had someone who played at University of Michigan call me and say, hey, I saw what you're doing. Do you have any tips and pointers? I'm like, use your platform, start from the ground up, roots, takes time, fail fast, and I'm trying to do that. And that's why I did things like Alicia Montgomery, to get myself uncomfortable, to be around successful people, because you never know the conversation you're going to have. You never know the quote they're going to tell you or the advice, just so that you can maybe keep going, do better, or do something else. And so I'm looking forward to hopefully 2020 being a really good year. Got some personal goals and professional, and this year was really a test, and it was hard. And I'm about 20 days away from finishing the year, just playing the trip to Miami. I'm going to the Orange Bowl. I want to see Florida Gators. So it's kind of like a little gift to myself. I've been a fan since '96, and the Bible says, enjoy the labors of your, enjoy the fruit of your labor. And I think, hopefully I've deserved it. If it happens, I know that I have. So I appreciate it. And I think, hopefully it can motivate others to do positive because there's other ways to get out what I say of the village. I preach that a lot to the kids is get out the village and come back, being able to travel and, without having to make a lot of mistakes. I think people can learn that it's not going to be easy, but it'll be worth it.
You mentioned a program there, and I'm just going to touch base on it real quick just because I appreciate you also recommending me for it. Leadership Montgomery, just a real brief shout out, C. Marie Taylor and Allie Livingston. For anybody that's in Montgomery County, wants to connect with other like-minded professionals, learn the ins and outs of the county so that you can maximize your impact and your level of connectivity there. It's a tremendous program. You mentioned support a couple times there, Joe. And I think when we think of youth sports, we often think of parents. Parents can be the greatest supporters, and they can also be the greatest roadblocks for young people. You have been around successful young people for years now. You are somebody who has achieved success yourself. Your mom being a big reason for that. What are some things that you've seen that have been potentially roadblocks for the success of the young student athletes you've interacted with?
Well, keep a spade as, single parent households have been a roadblock and extended. They've been very strong. And I tell people this all the time. I am never, ever going to be like a sexist. I grew up from a strong Black mother who poured into her son, and I wished my mom was harder on me, right? And the culture I grew up in at MV, parents, this specifically, Mom, this is a tough sport. We're more so out of the area in the parking lot doing cheerleading. She ran a cheerleading program for like 8 years. Nowadays, all parents are on the field closer to the lion's den. And I think that is a roadblock because you got to be able to put, in my opinion, and I think it hurts because I don't have a child yet, but I've been able to be with children a lot, is allow them to go through tough times so we can make them tougher because like the world is tough, right? And we want to, they birth them, they love them, they teach them, they cook for them. And the kids that are very successful, right, like a lot of kids want to be like Stephon Diggs. His dad, rest in peace, was very, very, very tough. And I'm close with his, half-brother, Aaron McDonald, and he'll tell you that. And so people don't always really want what they say they want. And for me, at least, my goal is for a kid to know that I never turned my back on them, I never lied. And sometimes parents can't handle that, but later on, they do say thank you because as they get to powerhouse programs in college, they're like, wow, you were right. And sometimes I think it's worse. Like I told my mom this. I'd rather me, it's a strong words, like be mad at you now than hate you later, than hate you now and then, if that makes sense. But basically, I just wanted her, like sometimes it's worth your kid, this is what's best for you. You need to be tougher, you need to do this. And so, I think the roadblocks have just really it's been getting too emotional. The game's getting safer, but it's getting too emotionally attached, and we just sometimes got to let go because we don't ever want to put kids in a position to get hurt or to lose. So if our heart's in it, but I have a lot of great parents, who are dedicated to the process, who are very thankful and grateful, who appreciate and want that for their son so they can prepare them. But then there's also those that have their own vendetta and maybe just don't understand because they don't come from a sports background. And I say the day that I have someone with a sports background call me and tell me they have an issue with the way I'm doing things is maybe where I'll consider stepping down. But it hasn't happened yet, and I know I have a majority than a lot more minority.
Hearing you there with regards to hating now, loving later, when I think of that, I think about just the authenticity of telling a kid how it is. And sometimes I think we have parents who go after teachers and coaches with regards to the level of honesty that they're providing their child, and that parent trying to shield or remove their child from an environment where they can get very, very honest feedback, especially in a very safe environment. Where is better to experience failure than a school or a field? So by removing the child, I would call it a bulldozer parent, by removing that child from hardship or failure, we're actually limiting their ability to go through this process where they are recognizing a pattern in which they're not getting a desired result. Oftentimes, right, coaches and teachers trying to provide feedback on intangibles, right? So I think the more that I at least get around this, and my sister's been good about communicating this, is it's a difference between creating an environment where a young person is becoming strong as a result of these hardships and failures, or safe. Right? Do we want our young person to be safe for the world or strong for the world? And I would argue that the parents that I've found who are developing these kids who are not only high achievers at these young ages, but translating whatever potential they have at to multiple levels, it is the parents that are allowing their child to get that very, very transparent feedback, to handle it, to ideally do something differently, grow as a result of it, recognize the patterns of what is going to put them in a position where they're getting better feedback, and ideally taking that and running with it and applying it to all aspects of their life.
Oh, definitely. And I think two things that stand out to me most recently was I saw something on Twitter was, for me, and you could answer the question, just me and you. Would you rather have a push or a hug?
I'd rather have a push.
Me too.
Yep.
Some people want hugs.
I don't need a hug.
And as I'm trauma informed and I'm working a lot with youth and learning a lot about the mental wellness and health of things is, I used to give this example, which I have to say, I say, don't take any offense because I've had both of these dogs. I grew up, I had a lab German Shepherd, and then now I have a Rottweiler Pit Bull mix. And I said, perfect example, I used to pet my lab all the time, and that's how he was motivated to be dedicated to me and love me and protect and play, right? My Rottweiler Pit Bull, he loved to chase a stick, raise the bar. I'm kind of playing with him, punching him, kicking him a little bit. And my mother said, well, stop, what are you doing? I said, Mom, this is love to him. He wants that aggression. This is how he responds. So one thing, from a coach's standpoint and a teacher or anyone, is learning how people respond. And I think that's always a growing thing for a coach is people have to be realistic of what they need, if it's a hug or a push. And sometimes if you need a lot of hugs, maybe you need to play for this organization. But if you want to push, play for MV and Coach Hooks, because like it or not, they know I'm going to be honest. And I've had a lot of people who love me, and a little bit of people not, because I've been honest. And there's nothing I want from them. I don't want cash. I don't want to marry your mother. I don't want anything like that. And so to value that is the reality.
That was a new one for me, Joe.
I mean, seriously.
You had me there, and then
there's a lot of, and I said marriage is being respectful.
Yeah,
what I mean? But people have different motives of why not telling the truth.
Right.
It's just a reality, like I said. And, I have never been there. I try to be consistent. I've never been perfect, trust me. But, I value that, and I want them to value that, because when I have a son one day, I want someone to tell him the truth so that he can prepare himself and be the best, for example, if I'm not around. So
it's one of those things where I think you run into a situation of sometimes parents pulling kids out of situations that you're mentioning. We can call that transferring youth programs. I think sometimes you'll see that result in transfers at the high school level, transfers at the college level. The grass is greener. This person over here is recruiting me and they're telling me all these amazing things. Sometimes, okay, maybe a new environment is best. Sometimes the root cause of the problem is actually that young person and the parents. Their dynamic and how they're viewing the situation is the problem, especially when you talk about organizations with proven track records of developing young people. If you go to somewhere and they have a proven track record and somebody there is telling you that you're not meeting an expectation, looking inside yourself, both as a parent, and then translating that to the young person that you are in charge of their future with, that is essential for them to grow instead of pointing the finger. And I've been using this more and more, thumbs first, fingers second. And the more that the parents that are in charge of these young people's future, their kids, take it as a thumbs first approach. How can I do things differently as a parent? How can my parenting approach change in terms of how I'm parenting the child in my life, and then translating that also to that kid. That kid needs to become a thumbs first person, right? They need to look inside themselves when they're getting feedback and really take ownership of the situation. Yeah, I mean, for you, I'm more curious of, you're seeing youth transfers. I imagine not everybody stays with MBSA. Right. High school transfers and college transfers are becoming more of a thing. Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean,
everyone just wants immediate success. Change sometimes is good, and but sometimes we got to hit the ground, so you can get back stronger. I know Rehab Reform, which helped me out recover a lot of times in adversity and the injuries I faced in my life. It only made me stronger to hit rock bottom, and I think a lot of people are afraid of that because of the social media and how everyone sees your failures. Growing up, I think people saw success easier because it was hard to get out there, but now with all these memes and social statuses and, things like that, I think everyone kind of shares, what's going on, and people don't want to see that. But for MV, I think in different high school programs, you kind of got to know what you're getting yourself into. And there is a difference. And if you could put yourself in a better situation, why not? But sometimes the better situation is to not be in the best situation. I played at Walker's Mill and we didn't have that much success, but I look